Hello, and welcome to this, the midweek Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Very glad you're able to spend some time with us today on felt like a downright balmy day out there this morning on the drive in. I jumped in my vehicle on the way to work around, I don't know, I think I left around 7:30 this morning, and it was 0, and it looked like there was some melting going on. The unfortunate news is that our meteorologist, Alistair Alder, says things are going to begin to start cooling off by the end of the week. We're looking at a minus 15 overnight low on Thursday night into Friday. So maybe not done with winter yet. Maybe Shubenacadie Sam was wrong. I don't know. The good news is I looked at the forecast very quickly before we came on the air this morning, and it doesn't look like there's any significant snow in the forecast, at least for the first little bit here. So maybe this trend of Sunday into Monday storms may be broken, and I don't think there's many out there that would be upset by that news. Maybe those that run the ski hills, or those that are perhaps skiers or getting out there and enjoying the snow. But for the most part, the people that have been shoveling, they've had enough, I think. Olympic events begin today. The opening ceremony is still a couple of days off, but some of the longer-running events will begin today. We'll see our first action on the curling ice today with Brent Galat, of course, from PEI originally, and his wife, Jocelyn Peterman, is they're playing in mixed doubles curling, and that's to begin today. We're also going to get a chance, I do believe it's tomorrow, to see the first preliminary game in women's hockey, which, of course, we have some pretty strong Nova Scotia connections with that team. So it's the Olympic excitement is starting to build. Of course, the opening ceremonies, I do believe, go Saturday, and we're looking forward to cheering on Team Canada as we roll along. HRP yesterday saying that they're going to take part in participating in the federal government's gun buyback program, despite the Premier, or a couple of weeks ago, saying that Nova Scotia was out. Confused? Well, so am I. We'll hopefully get some clarity tomorrow when at 11 o'clock, Premier Tim Houston will be in the studio for a full hour. He's going to be here to maybe answer that question and many more. He's here for 60 minutes to answer your questions tomorrow. That's going to begin at 11 o'clock. I hope you can join us then. One of the big announcements that came out of the province yesterday has many people talking today. It was the water cooler talk around here yesterday, and I'm assuming that as we start to dig into this and to get to the devil in the detail part of this, there'll be more discussions moving forward. And that, of course, yesterday the province announcing a significant change for first-time home buyers, lowering the down payment to 2% from 5%, which is a significant drop, and also backing those mortgages, which means that somebody taking part in this program won't have to pay that mortgage insurance, which is a significant chunk of money when you take a look at it. When it comes to things mortgage, we go to our mortgage guru, of course, the host of Mortgage 101 and mortgage broker extraordinaire. Can I call you that, Clinton?
I don't mind. You can call me whatever you want, as long as you call me, really.
That's Clinton Wilkins, of course. And Clinton, I guess first brush when you saw this kind of come out of the blue yesterday, what were your thoughts on this first-time homebuyer program?
Let me tell you, it was very busy, and I was getting, inquiries from across the country. And I sit on a national board, I think, as you know, Mortgage Professional Canada. I represent Atlantic Canada and the interest of, our industry, consumers, lenders, etc. So let me tell you, a very, very busy day yesterday and into today. I think any change around, enabling homeownership is good for Nova Scotians. For me, obviously, there's some pros to every program and there's cons to every program. And I think really that's what we're going to talk today about, Dan. To give you kind of the nuts and bolts, this is a pilot program. So this is not necessarily something that is going to stay forever. Certainly, it's very exciting. It creates some buzz in the media. Obviously, we're here and a lot of people are talking about it. So the way that the program is going to work is it's going to be run by participating credit unions here in the province of Nova Scotia only. And it's really based for first-time home buyers. Anyone who hasn't owned a home for 4+ years could potentially qualify for the program. And the way that it works is that you're going to make a minimum down payment of 2%. So that means that the credit union, backed by the province of Nova Scotia only, is going to lend the rest of those funds. Obviously, that's great. You don't need a lot of skin in the game. I think overall, when I'm kind of industry person looking at the program, one of my bigger concerns is 2% isn't a lot of skin in the game. But I feel like this pilot is potentially looking to replace the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program, which we're already running in Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia was unique. Obviously, different provinces have different programs, but, we had a pretty aggressive program here in Nova Scotia already, where the province of Nova Scotia was lending consumers, first-time home buyers, and only first-time home buyers, 5% of the down payment. Obviously, there's constraints around that program. There's constraints around the new program. For me, as a Nova Scotian and as a taxpayer, I do have concerns that the province of Nova Scotia is backing mortgages for, 25 plus years. A lot can change, as we know in the economy. Housing prices across this country are down somewhere around 20%, where in Nova Scotia we have not had these losses. Thank goodness. But I'm not saying that there's not going to maybe be price, changes in the future. And the way that this program will work is the province is going to back these credit unions for losses. We already have a federal agency that is doing the same type of thing, and that has been around since, the war times, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and we have two private insurers. We have Sagen and Canada Guarantee that are providing high ratio insurance to all lenders, including credit unions. And they're the ones that are covering these losses. So for me, the province getting in the, mortgage back game is a little bit concerning. I don't really know.
There's a risk there.
There certainly is a risk for a long, long time.
Right.
The challenge is, and I'm just going to be completely frank, typically the rates at a credit union are higher than you can get at a chartered bank or a mortgage finance company or, through a mortgage broker. We're talking 1 or 2% higher typically. So there is an additional cost of borrowing typically when you go to a credit union in the province of Nova Scotia. Different credit unions across the country obviously have different models, but primarily the cost of funds here at these credit unions are higher than a bank style lender. So I think that's one thing to take into consideration. The other thing is when you do not have high ratio insurance from CMHC, Sagen, or Canada Guarantee, you can't move your mortgage from lender to lender. So you will be stuck at this credit union probably for a long, long time. I'm talking like 10 to 15 years likely before you're going to be able to move to another lender.
Right.
You'll only be able to move to another lender when your mortgage is at 80% or less that the market value of the home. So unless we see big property value increases in the near future, the borrowers that are going to participate in this program, just beware. You're going to be stuck with this lender for a long time, and you just will not be able to move.
Lots of caveats attached to this program
For sure.
as well. Household income of $200,000, which I think is good. I think
that's quite aggressive.
Right, it is. And normally we get these programs, and sometimes though that limit is pretty low. But that I think is. That one was
I think that's quite fair, especially for a first-time home buyer. Now there is property value limits as well.
Right. Yeah, $570,000 with an HRM, and then outside. Including, I think it was Hants. Then the rest of it, $500,000. Now, Clinton, you and I have talked many times about house prices here, and you suggest that about $600,000 is the sweet spot, particularly in HRM. With these relatively low, and the minister himself last night I saw on TV was said, yeah, that's going to be tight in HRM. Is that going to put a run on lower priced houses, and are we going to see them perhaps increase because the demand will go up?
I think so. I think those prices are going to increase. As we know, this is a game of supply and demand, and I think this $600,000 and sub $600,000 price point is already, has a very high demand. And, if we're going to be entering more borrowers and more buyers into this marketplace, it may drive these prices up, which is going to make it more, I think, prohibitive for some first-time home buyers to get into the market, period. I think we have a very balanced market here. And I do not think that first-time home buyers have as hard of a challenge getting into the marketplace as they do in other areas of the country, like Ontario and BC. I think a lot of first-time home buyers are able to get into the market. Right now, if you get a normal, high ratio insured mortgage, you need to come up with 5% down. Whether that's from your own resources, whether it's from a gift, whether it's from the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program, or you're borrowing it from like a line of credit or something like that. Then you can get whatever mortgage you really want from whatever lender. So the difference between putting 5% down and putting 2% down and going with this more restrictive product, I don't know if it's going to be really as much of a game changer as people think. And sometimes, these little quick hits, as we know in the news, sometimes get people riled up, and it's creating some, demand in the marketplace. I can tell you, my phone was blowing up from Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. There's a lot of people who are in the industry, like realtors and lawyers, that are posting, information. And sometimes the information isn't always correct. So I really would urge anybody who's looking to buy a home and they want to get a mortgage, seek the advice of an unbiased mortgage professional. There's obviously a lot of nuances when it comes to mortgage lending. And when we're looking at a file, we can decide, does it make sense for you to go through more of a traditional program, or does, a credit union pilot program like this at the province of Nova Scotia is offering make more sense for you? Because, we need to weigh the pros and cons.
Right. I before I came on the air, I went on to the MLS site just for out of curiosity.
Just to have a little look.
Take a look around, and I'm sure many people have been doing that over the last 24 hours. And I picked a property. It was just outside of HRM. It was $445,000. At 5% down, it was $20-some-odd thousand. When it plug in the 2%, that drops to $9,000. Plus, the CMHC insurance fee was $17,000.
Yeah, and that gets capitalized. So there certainly is cost with. And there's going to be pros and cons to both ways, Dan. And I think that's what we really have to take into consideration. Is 2% better than putting down 5%? There's going to be, there's obviously the insurance cost we have to look at, and then there's the increased borrowing cost potentially with the credit union that you need to look at, and it being more restrictive. You're going to be in this home for a long time before you're going to be able to A, move the mortgage, or B, potentially even sell. So I think any time that you're doing any transaction, you need to look at, what do the options look like and what is your best path forward. And, this is going to work for some borrowers. It's not going to work for all. And I would say, and I would venture to guess, the popularity in more rural areas in Nova Scotia is going to be higher.
Right. I think outside of HRM, that number is it works better for the market there.
I think 100%. I think outside HRM, outside of Hants, I think there's going to be an increased, popularity in this program. And I think those rural communities sometimes are better served by credit unions. There's not a lot of bank lenders. There might not be a lot of mortgage brokers. But the borrowers that are here in HRM, I think 5% isn't that, restrictive, especially for the people that are buying a home. And let's be frank. If you don't have that 5% to put down on a home, what happens if something happens to your roof? What happens if something else happens to your home?
You still have to pass the stress test too, right?
You still need to qualify. And as I said, the rate for a credit union typically is 1 or 2% higher than it is with a normal bank lender, plus then 2% to be able to qualify. So, that $200,000 price point, normally, like I think with a bank lender, you can qualify for, up to maybe an $800,000 mortgage, but maybe with this higher rate, maybe $570 is what you can qualify for if you have $200,000 worth of income. Obviously, your debts are also factored into this and into your qualifying.
I know it's only been like a day, and the devil's always in the details with these things. But on first brush, is this program better for first-time home buyers, or is the, because I think it still exists, is the down payment program a better option for first-time home buyers? Your opinion? In
my opinion, I think the down payment assistance program is better. It was interest-free. It gives that, the borrower more options when it comes to actually getting a mortgage. With this new program, I think a borrower with a lower credit profile can likely qualify. And that gives me even more kind of concern, especially with such a low amount of skin in the game.
I think it said on the release
630
or 620. Yeah. So that's a
very low barrier to entry. Could a borrower with a 630 credit score qualify for 5% down on a flex down in the Nova Scotia Down Payment Assistance Program? I don't think so.
Clinton, we're out of time. Of course, this coming up weekend, we'll have the latest edition of Mortgage 101. I'm sure we'll probably talk about this.
I'm sure this is going to be a hot button topic here for our weekend show. So I'm sure our borrowers will want to tune in. We're talking about love your home. So maybe you want to improve your home, or what happens when love goes wrong.
Appreciate it, man.
We'll talk to you soon.
That is Clinton Wilkins. Of course, you can find him on his website, and you can listen to him here on the station on Mortgage 101 this coming weekend. And, of course, all the back episodes are available at halifax.citynews.ca. We're going to take a break. When we come back, environmental assessments for Marshdale and Saltspring gas plants in Nova Scotia should be kicked to the curb, at least that according to our next guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. You may or may not know that the province is taking a look at building a couple of 300-megawatt gas power plants in this province. As we continue to deal with electricity issues, we are dealing with generation issues. We're dealing with, of course, infrastructure issues and distribution issues that we saw when it got really cold. And this has caught the attention of a fella that's been working in this part of the industry for almost 50 years now, and has worked from the generation of power through the coal system right up into solar and into these more renewable sorts of energy. And he has some very serious concerns, particularly surrounding the environmental assessment of these two gas plants. Very pleased to welcome to the program today Neal Livingston. Neal, how are you?
I'm fine, and thank you for having me on, Dan.
I guess
hopefully we can run through the various points that I've raised in the last few days about these proposed plants.
Certainly, we'll do our very best in the time allotted. Of course, I guess the first biggest one here is you have a serious concern with the way that the province's environmental assessments on these two proposed plants has been carried out.
Sure. So the proponent is the Independent Energy System Operator, which is a new organization that the Premier has wanted to set up. And suddenly one of the first acts they've come out with is to come out with the idea that we need to spend probably a couple of $2 billion, not including the fuel costs over 40 years, to have gas plants to back up renewable energy. And this is like way offside. And I don't know if your listeners have been paying attention, but we've seen similar proposals come forward in New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island recently. And there's quite a lot of opposition in those areas. There is a requirement when you do an environmental assessment, and these are also need the approval of the federal government as well as the provincial government, that you look at alternatives. And the first thing I noticed when I heard about this project and looked at the environmental assessments, which are about 300 pages long, is they really completely fail to do any kind of assessment of alternatives. It's a 300-page report, and about 2 of the pages deal with alternatives, and they say none of them are any good. Battery backup's not good, and importing power from Quebec isn't going to work. And this is all really just nonsense. And I spent quite a lot of time over a period of weeks and then released a 10-page report about this. And I just think the whole thing should be summarily dismissed. So we could talk about, what the alternatives are, why these gas plants aren't available, but also the nature of how this is really, I see a political act by the Premier. And then the third part really is how a history of biased decision-making usually leads to very bad decisions. And for instance, about 30 years ago now, the last power plant that's coal that got built, Pointe-Coupee, a number of us opposed that at that time. And the Premier at the time, John Buchanan, wanted it so badly, he actually put through an act of the legislature to exempt it from any scrutiny.
Yeah. It shouldn't come as a surprise that $1 billion price tag for each of these, so $2 billion total, has not been sort of at the forefront of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, on a very simple level, I can just talk about the alternatives. But I mean, if you're going to go spend $2 billion, your power bill at home is going to go through the roof. And it's just that simple if you don't need to go and spend that money. So one of the things I've looked at in doing this report is you can leave one of your coal-fired power plants working and still meet the 80% reduction. I'm not in favor of having coal-fired power plants, but if one of them can provide 150 megawatts of backup, and the old kind of nonsense is that coal-fired power plants can't quickly back up renewable energy. But I was at a meeting in February of last year at Nova Scotia Power, and I got a tour of their procurement facilities, the computer, big computer screens about how they, use different sources of power to provide what we need on the grid. And what shocked me was that they're using coal-fired power plants to quickly back up variances in renewable energy. And that's always been claimed that it can't be done. So they've obviously have a huge amount of experience doing this, and the same old adage that it can't be done is resulting in this wonderful proposal, which will spend a couple $2 billion. And guess where they want to build the power plants really close to? The Premier's riding. And what does that do? Makes construction jobs in the Premier's riding.
Right.
And that's called pork barrel politics. If your readers want to type in pork barrel politics at the moment into their phones or their computers, you'll find that's the perfect definition.
You also identified the weather and wind as an alternative to this. The Premier is certainly has been talking about wind power for several months now.
Sure. There's, I guess when we're talking about backing up renewable energy, what we're talking about is there is having a lot more wind power, onshore wind power, land-based wind power on the grid in Nova Scotia. And I've experienced with that in the last 20 years. We built a 6-megawatt 3-turbine project 13 years ago that sells power to the grid every day. I'm the president of that company with a couple of other people. It's one of the only small companies left in Canada because wind projects have become so big. But you rarely have a day when there's no wind blowing in Nova Scotia. You might have 5 to 7 days a year. This is what the Power Corp executives have described to us in meetings, and that's why you have to have some other form of backup. So how do you do that? Well, the most contemporary way to do that is if you want to have it within the province, you build battery backup, but also between 2010 and 2020, Ecology Action Centre, Sierra Club of Canada, and I'm the co-chair of the Marguerite Environmental Association. We had a small working group where we met with executives in everything from Hydro-Quebec to Nova Scotia Power to the governments in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and the federal government and the Quebec government. And they, at that time, could have brought about 300 megawatts to Nova Scotia at about half the cost of what's on your power bill. And there's a new power line going into New Brunswick right now that's has way bigger capacity than that. And you end up with this strange situation here where Emera, which owns Nova Scotia Power, doesn't want to buy power from Quebec very often. They do it on occasion because they're a competitor. You end up with the province not wanting to deal with Quebec because they'd rather kind of, deal with, let's say, Newfoundland or something like that. And you've got this strange mix of politics that leads really somebody like the Premier to want to take advantage of a situation like that and say, hey, let's have this big construction project in my riding.
Neal, we're almost out of time. You were talking about Hydro-Quebec. Did we not expose issues with that when we had that cold snap, when everybody was kind of worried that we wouldn't be able to get power from neighboring provinces who were dealing with the same thing?
Well, what regularly happens with Nova Scotia Power is if they see a low wind day coming, they'll talk to Hydro-Quebec. They'll see what they can bring through New Brunswick. So we've always said that, you can continue to do that, but you can also be more formal about that and have some amount of what's called firm power from them. Some of the contracts with Hydro-Quebec into the States may be coming up, and we could grab those and have a very low-cost energy instead of building these gas-fired power plants. So that's, there's multiple solutions there, and sort of probably, the worst option that you can ever do is, want to put all your eggs in one old fossil fuel basket, which is what they're doing, or what they want to do with these plants. You don't decarbonize by building new gas plants. And, the real question is, did we need this new organization that got set up by the Premier, or is it just a way of him having more control to give out contracts to who he wants through a so-called independent body? And it's very, very, I would say, concerning that the Premier wants to have $2 billion gas plants built. It also fits his idea that we're going to be fracking and we're going to become a huge fracking place in Nova Scotia, which the public really is not on for, and maybe fits into this what I think is kind of a fantasy that we're going to have huge offshore wind. Well, sure we can, but how many billions of dollars do we want to invest in that instead of having things in our community that we want? For instance, in Western Cape Breton, where I live, we don't have an aquatic center. A bunch of us have been trying to get that, and all you hear is there's not enough money. So one of the final things I would say is there's also been a history of biased decision making, and we have to be careful that we're not doing that. And if you look at Quebec and Ontario, about 30 years ago, they built gas plants, and those plants have been a total disaster. They really haven't ever run them, and to get out of the contracts with the companies who build them, they've had to pay more than $1 billion not to run them. So this is like completely hitting a wall that you don't want to go into.
Neal, we're out of time. I appreciate yours today.
Great. Thanks very much.
That is Neal Livingston. We are going to stop for the news. The show continues on the other side. When we return, the Nova Scotia Alternative Budget is expected to be released next week. I wonder if it's got a $1.3 billion deficit attached to it. We'll have a conversation with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives Director Christine Saulnier after the break. All right, we know the provincial government is getting set to return to the legislature here at the towards the end of the month. For how long? We don't know, but they're going to go, quote unquote, back to work, and I know there will be lots of eyes on budgets there. I misread my notes in the before the break. The Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives budget has already been released, so we've got the documents in front of us. My apologies for any confusion. And it is calling for, well, a number of things, and we're very pleased to welcome into the program today to tell us a little bit more of that, Christine Saulnier. Christine, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
I guess the first bit of the report kind of gave perhaps a little bit of a pat on the back to the government for the financial situation that we're in. Am I misreading that?
No, you're not. We do say that the financial situation is such that we're not in bad fiscal health, that there is room here for government to be making the investments that they have been made, at least some of them. We are critical of some, but the debt to GDP ratio, which is really the main measure of understanding fiscal health, is low and has been steady for many years. So, yes, that is the one kudo going into this alternative budget on the fiscal side. Despite
a $1.3 billion debt?
Despite that. And, we have a whole chapter that shows you what the data looks like, what's been happening with debt service costs. And really the question is not so much on the number that you just cited, but really what are we spending it on and what is the return on that investment? We talk about public sector funding as if there isn't a return, and of course there is. But the return is higher for certain spends than there is for others. And so we do make suggestions around how they might redirect some of the money, how they might make the tax system more progressive and fair, and figure out, investing in those things that have a higher return on investment, like childcare, like healthcare, which, of course, we've seen some investment in. But what we're critical of is the kind of spending that we've seen on business rebates, on untendered costly contracts that are really about subsidizing private profit, and really on some of the tax cuts that have happened, some tax credits, tax rebates that are really supporting higher income earners in this province. Question for us is really opportunity cost. When you weigh those decisions and you look at those numbers, what could we do with that income? And for us, it really is about ensuring more Nova Scotians are benefiting from the investments and not just the few who obviously have been benefiting all along. And are those who know what's available to them in terms of tax reductions, who can afford accountants, who understand how the tax system works, and they're benefiting. And so what better ways can we be spending the money that we have? Yeah, there's not an unlimited amount. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but what can we do better together? I hear a lot about crowdfunding, and if you look at our analysis on those tax cuts, like how much we can do together versus just giving people, quote unquote, a little bit of money back in their pockets, it's pretty stunning to see the distributional impact. So who is benefiting?
The province and the premier will say that they've accomplished that, Christine. They took the tolls off the bridge in Halifax, and that puts money into people's pockets. And this brand new program they announced yesterday with this reducing the down payment on a home to 2%. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the toll on the bridges really was about congestion. And of course, they've made congestion worse by taking the tolls off the bridge. We could have a whole conversation about that.
You bet.
About fees. That wasn't the correct move. No matter what evidence you're looking at, having people in Cape Breton pay for this bridge when we're really wanting to figure out how to fund transit in Halifax is the whole conversation. About the housing. I mean, we have a whole housing and homelessness section of our budget that makes investments that would end the housing crisis. What was announced yesterday is really about demand. There isn't a lack of demand. There isn't a lack of people who are trying to purchase. There is a lack of specific supply. That's really what we're saying. So really for us, it's what is the role of government? And if we want to really think about public services and how do we better serve Nova Scotians, then we really have to look at what the market will never serve. The market will never serve those who are the lowest income. It will never provide the kind of affordable housing that is required outside of that market. So the nonprofit, the public housing, even cooperative housing, that's where our investment should be, not on continuing to subsidize private for-profit landlords, which is essentially what we're doing, right? And part of what we're calling for is to get at the root causes of why we're in all of these crises. And one of them is this housing issue. So we now have rent subsidies. Those are keeping people in their houses, but they're effectively subsidizing private for-profit landlords. If we actually build non-market housing, it does free up the market housing for others. But unless we're looking at that specific supply, then we'll never get there. And to us, that's really how we need to be thinking about government. What is its role, and how do we, as Nova Scotians, figure out, what kind of society do we want to live in? I certainly want to live in one where there's no people who are unhoused and living in tents. And how do we get there? I mean, we've been making some of these recommendations for at least a decade. And if we'd had addressed the housing crisis and what we've been saying a decade ago, boy, it would have been less expensive than it is today.
Right, and that may have answered my next question, but whenever we have discussions about public housing and the government getting involved in that, and I always get the pushback is that it's incredibly expensive for government to do anything, and the amount of red tape that would be attached to that would make it just absolutely an even worse situation than we're in now.
Well, that is not what the evidence really tells us around what it means to have public housing or nonprofit housing or cooperative housing. I mean, we know that those things work. We used to invest in them, and they made a difference in people's lives. Across jurisdictions, not just in our country, but of course in other countries, that has been a big part of the solution in terms of housing, to make it affordable and make sure that people don't worry about losing their house next month. We need to do that. I mean, we do need to do other things outside of budgeting. But when we're looking at these numbers, again, there are things government should not be doing. This is not one of them. This is one where government should absolutely be stepping in.
Christine, the Premier's plan to prosperity, can I say that, appears to be on resource development and exploiting the resources that Nova Scotia has. We talked about uranium, we've talked about fracking, now we're talking about offshore wind. What are your thoughts with regards to that, to our way to financial freedom?
Yeah, I mean, we do have, another chapter on economic development. And, I mean, wind farms, obviously, they're renewable. We want to see more wind farms. We want to see that feeding into our grid in Nova Scotia, and not for whatever we're calling green, white, hydrogen. But that we want to see a public bid on that we want to actually have a stake in wind farms. When we look at what's happening in terms of resource extraction, it is never going to have the return on investment that government is suggesting. I mean, we've done analysis on this, but, you add in new technology, you will not see the kind of job growth that they're suggesting, and we definitely won't see the economic returns that they're suggesting. They're really, even if we wanted to see those returns, government would need to step up and actually make those companies pay, and not just while they're doing resource extraction, but the cost afterwards. The cost to the environment is obviously quite significant. This is not the path forward. Again, for us, what is the role of government? It's really about how do we take care of each other, and what government does there matters. The return on investment that we see if we were to lift all the children in Nova Scotia out of poverty, that's huge. The longer that those children live in poverty, I'm working on the report card right now, the more that will cost us in the long run. It's short-sighted to think that some multinational coming in to do some resource extraction is the solution. It really is not. It's not the long-term sustainable solution, nor are the payroll rebates that we use to attract the companies to come here. They're short-term, and at the end of the day, when we think about connecting those dots, how do we create a province where we also are not making, climate change and climate crisis worse? Because we are all paying for the impacts of that, whether that's higher house insurance, if you're lucky enough to even be able to afford house insurance and get it. Those are the things government should be looking at.
Christine, the report available on your website?
It is, policyalternatives.ca.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That is Christine Saulnier from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Switching things up when we come back, East Pointers are coming out with a new album. We'll dig into that and what's next for them. Is a tour coming up, maybe? We'll have to find out. A conversation with the group, the East Pointers, right after the break. Listening to this program for any length of time, you know that Todd and I like to put a little bit of a spotlight on some Atlantic Canadian East Coast talents as they ply their trade, as it is said, and get out there and produce some wonderful things and some wonderful music. And this next interview is certainly fits into that category. I'm very pleased to welcome into the studio today, this early in the morning, which I know from some of these guys is not easy, Tim Chason and Jake Charon. They are called the East Pointers, and they've got a new album out. It's called Schoonertown, and you're going to get a chance to see them because they are touring all over the place and hanging out with some guy, I don't know, Alan Doyle maybe, as part of his upcoming tour as well. Please welcome to the studio, Tim and Jake. Tim and Jake, hello.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having us in.
So, as I understand it, the name East Pointers comes from a spot in PEI. Am I correct?
It does, yeah. East Point is close to where we grew up, and it's a beautiful little place. And whenever you start a band, like as a for fun, as a joke almost, you don't really think about the band name. You're like,
right.
Oh yeah, we'll call ourselves East Pointers. And then when you start touring, you're like, should we have called ourselves East Pointers? But yeah, no, that's where it comes from.
Cool. So born and raised in PEI, both of you?
No, not myself. I'm from Barrie, Ontario, born and raised, but I've been trying to fit in for the last 10 years or so on PEI.
Well, I've been here. I'm from Ontario too, and I've been here for 20 years, and I'm still a couple from away. So you got a ways to go yet, sir.
I'm originally from Surrey, PEI, and
right.
our late bandmate Cody, who was my first cousin, is also from there too.
There you go. Yeah. So a little bit of a mix of each. Tell me about Schoonertown, and I ask this question to artists that come in here because putting an album together is a journey, I will say. Tell me a little bit about the process and what you came up with for Schoonertown.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a concept album, we would say. We actually recorded it, and produced it all in Jake's studio, and Jake engineered it in Charlottetown. So it was, I guess it kind of grew out of, like I was mentioning about Cody earlier, how, we started this band because of Code, and we had, I guess, 7 years in the band with Code, and we lost him. He passed away in 2022 of an aortic aneurysm. And I think a lot of the music that we wrote after that, we weren't sure what we were going to do, I think, at that point. But, the first step was releasing music that we had written with Cody and recorded with him. And I think a lot of the things that we wrote after that were a little on the sadder side because it was such it was a sad time. And so with this record, we really wanted to to spotlight, I think, the fun years that we had as our, young adults growing up or living in little seaside towns, and a lot of the stories and the struggles and the triumphs of that, and wanted to make like a fun album, like a bit of a party album. So that was the whole idea, and capturing the East Coast sound as well, not shying away from what we do, playing the fiddles and the guitars, and but making it kind of feel like a modern record.
Right, and listening to it, I when you talk about genres, right? It's East Coast ish. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yeah, it's hard to kind of pin it down. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean it is hard to put it into a box, but definitely influenced by lots of different genres. It's, having the fiddle puts it in that Celtic realm, I suppose, but then it's got a lot of pop production on it and. Some classic.
I think growing up, just mainly listening to East Coast fiddle music, it's like, but also listen to what's on the radio. You just naturally just kind of write whatever comes out, and I think, we had a lot of fun in the studio. And there's no rules to any whatever. It's just like, let's just make a fun thing. So that's what happened.
The album is a journey, but then the grind after, right? Particularly in today's world, and I've been around long enough in the beginning of my career when you released an album, that was it, right? You released the album and it got played on the radio, and then you did a couple of dates just to kind of support it. That isn't the case anymore. Now it's the grind, right?
Yeah, it's like you definitely have to push it. Like these days, it's social media mainly is where post every day, keep posting.
Right.
But also being on the road is what it's all about, I think, for us, and playing live. Yeah.
You guys got a bunch of dates coming up too, right?
We do, yeah. We're really excited to be joining Alan Doyle on his Cross Canada tour, which is going to be a good time, right from Newfoundland through Halifax for 4 days, and then all the way out to Victoria. It should be a time.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
What can new fans expect from your show? I imagine. We've talked about a lot of fun, so I'm assuming that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I think just to dance, or like a lot of times we have songs that deal with certain things that people can connect with, like on an emotional level. I think you never know what people connect with, but I think. We like to try to create like a fun show that people can just like dance, sing along, have a good time. Yeah.
The tour starts in St. John's on the 27th. A couple of dates there. One of them sold out. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And then you come here in the beginning of March, I think the 3rd, right through until the 6th over at the Lighthouse Art Center, then to Moncton, and then, the list goes on and on and on and on. And on.
Tour.
You guys have a busy first beginning of the year here, right through till May.
Yeah, it's pretty full on, and then, lots of festivals this summer, and then more touring in the fall. So it's a busy year for sure.
Yeah. Any plans to head back to the studio and record anything else, or is there any time for that?
We're always kind of tinkering around. Yeah,
writing stuff along the way for sure. But this is this feels like a phase that we've we're out on the go. And last year we were definitely in the studio for a lot of the year. So this is now time to share the music, I guess, for a bit.
Yeah.
New album's out. Schoonertown it is called. It's available, I'm assuming, on all the streaming platforms.
Yep.
And you guys are streaming pretty well. I think millions of streams happening here.
Yeah, I guess so.
There you go. So hopefully we'll get you a couple more.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate you spending some time here. We look forward to seeing you when you come back on the 3rd of March at the Lighthouse. Tickets available. You can just go right to the site and get them. Tim, Jake, appreciate your time. The East Pointers is the name. The album is Schoonertown. It's a lot of fun. I took a quick listen to a bit of it here before the show today, and I'm looking forred to going home and listening to the rest of it.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you very much, Dan.
We are going to take a break here, but before we do that, you heard yesterday that we had a couple of tickets. Well, Vanessa found some more. The Mooseheads are going to welcome the regiment from Newfoundland tonight down there at Scotiabank Centre. If you want to go, why not go on us? The game's at 6:30 tonight, and we've got some tickets available. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Caller number, 3. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. My thanks to the East Pointers. When we come back, House Calls with Dr. John Gillis. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's Wednesday, just after the news at 11. That means it's time for house calls. Dr. John Gillis is here to answer your medical-related questions. If you have a question for the doctor, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Again, those numbers are 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Very pleased to welcome back here on a Wednesday, Dr. John Gillis. Dr. John, how are you?
Doing well, sir. How you doing?
I am well. The Maple Leafs have won 2 in a row. I guess the answer is to play terrible Canadian teams.
Yeah, man. I was at the Avalanche game the week before, as I may have mentioned, and yeah, it was like watching the Mooseheads play a Pee-wee team.
Right.
It wasn't much fun to watch, to say the least.
No, it's tough times in Leafland. That is for sure. Dr. John, we often start the program by asking you how things are at the ER, particularly over there in Dartmouth. Is it still the virus soup that's working its way around?
It's just everything. Just busy. I mean, got there yesterday in the morning, and it wasn't too bad. There was only 2 or 3 to be seen, but it's like word got out, and 3 large buses showed up, and by 2-3 in the afternoon, it was back to its usual level of precision busyness.
We're hearing an awful lot of people talking about this virus, or one of these viruses that's floating around, lingering for an extended period of time. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that. Just whatever people seem to have, whether it's COVID or adeno or RSV, they're just not going away. They're and you see people coming in frustrated, and again, people that normally just wouldn't turn up with a virus, but it's been lingering, and you certainly get that frustration. So, sometimes we can help with a puffer for the inflammation. Sometimes people do get secondary infections. They have a virus, and it's just the mucus and gunk has lingered so long. But they need antibiotics, and that sometimes is the case. So
that's the concern I hear from people that have had it for a couple of weeks or 3 or 4 weeks and even longer, is that they worry that they'll go and make that commitment to come to the ER or try to get into a walk-in and spend all that time, and then the doctors will look them over and say, well, there's nothing we can do, right?
Yeah, no, it is frustrating. I mean, I think generally speaking, when I see people that have been grumbling that long, I think a little more open-minded approach to, than the person who, this happens, and it happened yesterday several times. I've been coughing for an hour, I've got a runny nose, treat me. And you're like, well, there's no urgency here.
Right.
What's the urgency? And, people don't like that. It's been unfortunate, so.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, I came across an article on the CBC website this morning from the president of the Nova Scotia Nurses Union and the Doctors Nova Scotia group, who are starting to raise concerns about the brand new one-person, one-record system that's being trialed over at the IWK, saying that it's cumbersome and it's delaying admissions. Have you heard any scuttlebutt on it yet?
Heard very little, to be honest. We're not using it yet. I was in the IWK recently. My daughter had appendicitis, and they appeared to be using it, and they seem to be doing fine. But it's hard to tell, right? I mean, I'm not in the middle of it. I haven't heard much. I'd be making it up if I told you I had. But there's always going to be growing pains. I mean, conceptually, I like the idea of such a system. I write like a 3-year-old, and I type really fast. So I'm happy to have the, that system in place, as long as it just doesn't create other problems and make things cumbersome.
Have they indicated if or when it's going to sort of roll out? I mean, obviously it's a pilot at the IWK, and I would imagine the testing phase is underway now, but eventually it's going to go out, right?
I'm seeing emails about, prep sessions and training sessions, which gets me really excited because I really enjoy things like that. So, we will do what we must.
Yeah, training's always fun. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, I got an email question from last week from somebody that said that it probably isn't anything, but I felt that my pinky on my toe, my right foot, is starting to swell up. He said I've been putting some antibiotic ointment on it and a Band-Aid combination and icing it. And it, over the last week or so, hasn't seen any kind of improvement. He said, I'm taking it easy at the gym now and doing my squats as much and incline walking to try not put pressure on it. Is there a ballpark when I should start to get concerned if this swelling doesn't go down?
There's not many things that happen to one's little toe that are of grave concern, but it can be really annoying. I used to get, for whatever reason, infections at the base of my fifth toe just from being in my stanky old rugby cleats, probably, and get inflamed, get irritated. I need to do something similar, put cream on it. But I guess the point is depends if it's infected or if it's inflammatory. If there's a sign of redness or irritation, you may need some topical stuff like Fusidin or polysporin or an oral antibiotic. If it's just traumatic or irritated, from wearing a shoe that's too tight or doing too much running, anti-inflammatories, both creams and pills can help, and taping can help, but often rest is what's required. So, I guess what I'm getting at is it really depends what caused it, and if that cause is still present, it may not settle down. So, try to get a proper diagnosis and address it accordingly.
Anything with that little toe is just a real pain in the neck, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or a pain in the foot, I guess.
Indeed.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Dr. John's here on the other side. You're listening to House Calls. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. Are picking up, so let's get to them as quickly as we can. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number, and we'll go to the phones and welcome Jim to the show. Jim, how are you?
Good morning. I think I'm okay.
Okay, your question for the doctor, please.
Dr. Rob.
Dr. John, actually.
Sorry. 2 evenings ago, while I was eating supper, I swallowed a mouthful of food, and it felt like it wasn't going down. It was almost like there was a bubble or something in the esophagus, keeping it from going down. I've experienced that before, occasionally, but it would only last a few minutes. This time, it lasted between 30 and 40 minutes, and I was at the point where I'd actually got in the car, get my wife to drive me into emergency because I thought it might be a cardiac event. After driving for about 5 minutes, it passed. And I felt okay since, but I've been wondering, should I have gone in to emergency and get checked out?
Yeah, the short answer is if you think a cardiac event, if there's any risk of that based on your symptoms or your age or your other risks, and the answer is always yes. It may not have been, odds-wise it probably wasn't, but you don't know until you get checked. So, I would suggest maybe you mention that to your family doctor. And how old are you?
72.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. You may just have a narrowed esophagus and things are getting stuck, but if you're having intermittent chest pain, you probably should, at a minimum, get worked up for, cardiac causes. Maybe have a treadmill test, that sort of thing. So your family doctor should be able to arrange that. But if it happens again, you should get yourself checked.
I'm very active. I was the day that happened. I had been cross country skiing 15 kilometers, and the following day I went out and skied about 14, and didn't seem to have any effect.
Well, that's reassuring. That's effectively what a stress test is. But if you have an episode, at least review it with somebody when it happens. Don't take a chance.
Best of luck, Jim. Appreciate the call, sir. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones, and we welcome Jill to the show. Jill, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I just wanted to call to tell Dr. Gillis that I was at the Dartmouth General ER yesterday with my mother-in-law, who's elderly, and our experience was really, really positive, very good. And so often people are complaining about emergency and waiting forever and ever. And I just wanted to tell you that thank you to all the doctors and nurses and staff that are there, because we went in, she waited an hour, she got into a bed, and the doctors and nurses there took everything that she was telling them seriously, treated her for all kinds of good stuff to check everything out, and we were out of there around 6:30, which, it was great. So I just wanted to say thank you, so that you don't always have all the negative comments. So
Thanks, Jill.
that was my story. So thank you very much.
Yay, Dartmouth General, Dr. John.
There we go. It's nice to hear once in a while. Kudos to everyone putting in the effort there.
Right. Thanks, Jill. I appreciate it. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones, and we welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you?
Hi, good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it.
Doing a terrific job, by the way.
Thank you.
And, it's a privilege to talk to Dr. Gillis. I haven't talked to him ever in my life, but...
your question, please.
Two questions. All right. The first one is, I noticed that they're closing down all these walk-in clinics, like the one at Joe Howe, and I think there's one or two more. I don't know what's going on with the politics there, but, the communities need these walk-in clinics. And so, and another question is, sorry, I don't mean to take up all your time, but expiry dates, like or best before or whatever. So on antibiotics, like say, I'm a big believer in Zithromax. It's my favorite. It cures, it's like a wonder drug. If you got a chest infection or, something's going on, it can actually cure pneumonia. But anyways, to a certain point before you might die. But anyways, if the expiry date's over by, say, a year or something, even other antibiotics like polysporin or, drugs like that used to treat, So, I was wondering about the expiry dates. Can you still use them if they're expired? Or maybe not, because it might make you sick.
Yeah, so a couple things. You asked about walk-in clinics. I mean, most of them are closing, I assume, because they don't have enough people to work in them, or I hate to talk about it, but the financial model doesn't work. It's the per visit fees, coupled with what the clinic takes, coupled with the, relative uncertainty of seeing people you don't know. It's very different, seeing people you don't know than seeing someone who's a recurrent patient. So it's just not a happy business model, and, our fees and our, have kept up generally for regular family medicine, but we have, not great, fee codes or, payment for doctors and nurse practitioners for, what we call more urgent care. And I think that's a gap in the system, and doesn't seem to be a willingness to address it. The solution, some of it is financial. Antibiotics, pills, number one, if you have antibiotics, you shouldn't still have them because you're supposed to take them all. So you shouldn't have any that expire. Generally, I would not take expired antibiotics if you're sick, that are pills. Polysporin, things like that, their expiry dates are quite lengthy because of the way they're made and preserved. I don't think there's harm in using them, but, again, you have polysporin for over 3 years. It may be dried out, it just may be ineffective and have nothing to do with expiry dates. So generally speaking, with pills, don't take expired pills. With creams and that sort of thing that are less invasive and more stable, I don't think there's a real harm in it. They may not work as well. You're probably better off updating. So
Dr. John, how about things like pain relievers like Advil or Tylenol or cold meds? You know, people go buy a whack of cold meds and don't use them all and get sick the next year.
Yeah,
and then
they may just not be as effective.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, so they're not going to harm you. It's hard to imagine how Tylenol actually expires, but they seem to think it does. But is it a marketing thing?
Right.
I don't think it's going to hurt you. Generally speaking, we advise people to use up-to-date meds, but I don't think it's going to harm. It just may not work as well.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate that call. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's see if we can squeeze one more in here before the break. Let's welcome Jeff to the show. Jeff, how are you?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Dr. Gillis, I get a reoccurring stabbing pain on my left side, and was wondering if that kind of rings a bell with you.
Left side of what? Your chest, your leg, your abdomen?
Just below the rib cage.
Left side of your belly, below the rib cage. On the front or back?
Front.
Yeah, I mean, the left side below your rib cage is where your stomach is, and there's bowel there. That could be stomach inflammation or, the early stages of an ulcer. It could be just gas. It could be an irritated rib. Pain in that area can be cardiac in nature and fool us, even though it seems to be in the belly. It can be coming from the chest. So, I mean, the story remains the same. If you're not sure what's causing pain, how old are you?
I'm 68.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having pain in that area, you should get someone to take a look at you. I mean, get examined and maybe get a cardiogram just as a precaution. It's probably not that. It sounds like it's probably bowel, but we don't like probable in our business.
Is it, Dr. Gillis, I do have IBS, I should remind you. Would that be IBS related?
Could be. Again, it's hard to put that together without checking somebody, but it certainly could be. It would go along with that pattern. But again, if it's changing or it's worse or bothering you, you should get someone to take a look at it.
Thanks for the call, Jeff. I appreciate it. Best of luck. We're going to take a break for the news. The doctor's going to stick around on the other side of it to answer your questions. If you do have a question for Dr. John, the number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We are back after the update. Welcome back. It's time for house calls. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Those are the numbers if you'd like to ask Dr. John Gillis a question. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Dr. John, I know you'll be watching the Olympic Games like many of us will be. Are you there, Dr. John? Are you muted?
I'm here, yeah.
There you are.
Straight through the finish.
Sure. I don't know if you've been following the story of Lindsey Vonn, the downhill skier, who completely ruptured her ACL and says she's still okay to race in the Olympics. That has to be excruciatingly painful, if not impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems a little crazy. Now, I'm sure Lindsey Vonn has quads that are twice the size of mine and yours and is in superhuman shape. Having seen a lot of people over the years with knee injuries and my own wonky knees, I've said on the show before, I had a bad knee, and my orthopedic friend, in language I will not repeat here, just basically told me to suck it up and get on with it and build up my strength. That took away all the pain. So, will she be at 100%? Probably not, but I suspect between the knee brace and the fact that, she's an absolutely phenomenal athlete who's in amazing shape, her quads, her hamstrings, her other muscles will stabilize that knee and hopefully let her get through it. It sucks for her, great Olympian, and just wish her the best.
Literally, the race right before the Olympic Games, she went down and tore that or ruptured that ACL. That has to be. I mean, anybody that I've heard that has had, like yourself, Dr. John, that has had that an injury in their knee like that, it's not a pleasant experience. It's extremely painful.
Yeah, no, I've never done my ACL, but I've banged it up in many different ways. But that's a tough one because you're rupturing a major ligament. There's a lot of swelling and pain, and that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, it's one thing to race without an ACL. A lot of people function and do things without an ACL for at least a period of time. But injury being fresh, you have a lot of pain and swelling. So hopefully, obviously she's getting the best medical care and she knows what she's doing, and wish her the best.
Does the ACL support your knee? Obviously it does, right?
Yeah, I mean, the ACL is there are four main ligaments in the knee, the anterior, posterior cruciates, and the medial and lateral collaterals. But if you had to pick the most important one for knee stability, it's particularly for athletics, it's definitely the ACL.
We'll have to watch to see if she does, and wish her the best, because holy smokes, that has to be painful. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's return to the phone lines. And welcome Gary to the show. Gary, how are you?
Not too bad. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Your question for the doctor, please.
Dr. John, I've been having this extreme pain and burning feeling in both of my heels, and it'll go up to my toes, but only at night when I'm in bed going to sleep. And it doesn't happen every night. It's frequent. I could go 4 nights without it, and then it'll just reoccur again. I was wondering if you might have any ideas.
Sorry, I didn't hear that really well. You said it goes from where to your toes?
From my heels.
Yeah, I'm not hearing that word.
From his heels, Dr. John, from his heels to his toes.
Okay. Yeah. So without looking at it, it could be a lot of things. A common cause of foot and heel pain is inflammation of the firm fiber at the bottom of the foot, the plantar fascia. We call that plantar fasciitis. That often responds to ice and anti-inflammatory medication, either creams or pills, often related to being, on your feet and active. If you notice, it's more when you're on your feet and busy. It could be that. There's a lot of different causes for toe pain. It could just be arthritis, could be gout. Probably what I'd just encourage you to do is get, someone to take a look at it, whether your own doctor or a physio, just to examine it and to see if they can reproduce the pain, where it's coming from, and then come up with a treatment plan. But those would be the most likely things.
Best of luck, Gary. That is I've had experience with that. It's not a lot of fun. And plantar fasciitis was where mine went, and I managed to get that under control with an orthotic. So that may be a remedy, Dr. John.
Yeah, absolutely. Just changing the position of the foot can help take away the irritant, and often helps a lot. Absolutely right.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Again, the number 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phone lines, and we welcome Mo to the show. Mo, how are you?
Good morning, Dr. Gillis. I have a question. Recently, I was diagnosed with vestibular dysfunction in my left ear. So I guess I caught a virus about a year ago, and it affected my balance. Is there anything that I can do to bring back the dysfunction in my left ear? Any medication that I can take?
Yeah, I guess the question is, what problem are you having? Are you having a balance problem or a hearing problem?
Yes, I have a balance problem.
What is that? Do you feel like you're spinning, like vertigo, or do you feel like you're going to fall down?
I feel like I'm going to fall down. It's an off balance, no spinning.
It's not spinning, okay. So I guess a couple things. Have you seen anybody about it to date? Have you seen an ear, nose, and throat specialist?
Yes, I did a couple of days ago, and I went to the Dixon clinic. I did a whole bunch of tests, and that's what they came up with. I have a dysfunctional vestibular in my left ear. So they think it was caused by a virus about a year ago, and I lost some of my balance.
And what recommendations did they provide to you?
Nothing. They said I could go to a balance clinic, but I've done that, and to no avail. That made no change whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem odd that the ear, nose, and throats didn't offer you any thoughts on that. I might check back with them. I mean, depending on what the nature of vestibular dysfunction, refers to the inner ear and how it tells the brain which way is up and which way is sideways, which controls our balance, and that can get messed up sometimes by viruses. There are some maneuvers that can be used to help with that, and there's balance retraining that can be done. Usually that's guided by the balance clinic or by an ENT. There are some physios that specialize in balance. You could have a look online to see if you see anything. But I mean, I think you're probably stuck with either going back to the balance clinic and asking them to review your testing, or asking for a follow-up with the ENT that you saw and say, look, okay, this is great, I got a diagnosis, but now what can we do about it? I think that's coming up with a plan is the most important thing for you right now.
Thanks, Mo. Best of luck. Appreciate the call. The telephone number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Dr. John is back in minutes. All right, welcome back. House Calls, easy for me to say, continues right through till the top of the hour. If you have a question for Dr. John Gillis, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's how you access the show. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We welcome Gary to the show. Gary, how are you?
Not bad. I have the sarcoidosis. I found out I have the sarcoidosis in the lungs. What's that from?
You're asking what it is or what caused it?
What caused it?
Well, it's basically a condition where an inflammatory condition where the body kind of turns on itself and kind of attacks a tissue in certain areas. The lungs are probably the most common area. You can see it in other organs, but the lungs are the most common, and not really well understood what causes it. Can run in families, but it's not like you did something to get it or you picked it up or it's contagious. It's something that your body decided to kind of attack that lung tissue and cause some problems. Are you having breathing issues, or how was it discovered?
Yeah, I have breathing is in my my lungs, is in my liver and everything.
And you're getting some treatment, presumably?
Yeah, I go to a lung specialist.
Yeah, so look, it is very treatable with steroids and other drugs, and hopefully it was caught early enough that you can manage it and it'll go well for you. But again, nothing that you did. It's not cancer. It's sort of what we call an autoimmune process, where the body unfortunately goes after itself a little bit and causes some damage. But it sounds like you're in good hands and you're getting good treatment.
Thanks for the call, Gary. Best of luck. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number. Dr. John, a couple of email questions here. One comes to us from Tom, and it reads, a type of the Shingrix vaccine is said to mitigate against Alzheimer's disease. Is that available in Canada, and how can someone get that shot?
Well, shingles vaccine, Shingrix is the vaccine that's available that we use for shingles. So yes, that vaccine is available. There is some data that getting it will reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's. I think it's quoted to be, half a year delay or something to that effect. But again, it's fairly new data, and I think what they've been looking at is studying the effects of people who've had, outcomes on people who've had the vaccine and people who haven't, and it's a trend line that's been noticed. I think some of this work was done, just looking at it here, actually looking at seniors in Ontario, 3.5% reduction overall dementia risk, with some studies showing a 20% lower risk compared to those not vaccinated. So the idea is that it may reduce inflammation from that virus that causes shingles, which is varicella zoster virus. So again, interesting information that we sometimes, when we use a drug or a vaccine for one thing, sometimes we see other bad effects. Sometimes we see other good effects, and things end up being used for reasons that they were not originally intended. Such as minoxidil for hair Viagra for, good times in the Maritimes, as it were. But in this case, it may be that getting shingles vaccine is a good thing anyway, but there may be another benefit in Alzheimer's prevention. So an interesting piece of information. I hadn't seen that, so thank you for sharing that with us.
I think Ozempic was the same way, right? It was designed for one thing, but we find that it has benefits in other areas.
Yeah, I talked about that a little bit, I think, when you were off. Ozempic was designed as a diabetic drug, a sugar reduction drug, and then we're seeing weight loss, better health outcomes, and it's been used in non-diabetics now. And we're starting to see some emerging data and research on other cravings. And mentioned this. I have some patients that are on Wegovy or Ozempic, for weight loss or diabetic control, but they've told me that their alcohol consumption has declined radically in a couple of cases through no real, just a change in impulse control and craving. They're just like, I like a glass of wine, I just don't want 6. It's interesting, and I think we're going to see more and more data around some of that stuff. Does it have another use for alcohol use disorder, cannabis use disorder, opiate use disorder? We don't know yet, but again, this highlights that often, and the whole point of people who think vaccines or drugs just get made in a meth lab in somebody's basement and get thrown onto the market. They get researched extensively and tracked extensively to look for outcomes. Occasionally those outcomes are not good outcomes, but sometimes we find other things happening that are actually positive. This appears to be one of those cases.
Dr. John, I got a couple of emails from listeners earlier in the day today, and haven't seen any extensive reporting on this, but it is being said that the Canadian government is going to seal vaccine injury records from the COVID years, and for a significant amount of time. Would there be a reason why you would seal those kind of records?
Sure. I saw that, and to be honest, I looked this up the other day. The problem is where I saw it was on let's just say a social media site that
right.
Thinks Mark Carney is the spawn of the devil, him or herself, and the president of China, and anything done by the government is a communist plot and conspiracy. So that's where I saw it. Short answer is I don't know. I mean, I would like to know, and I looked this up the other day, and I didn't get a good reason as to why. If you do a quick Google search, you get the Western Standard and Blacklock's Reporter,
right,
which are two, conservative mouthpiece, so-called news sites. So I don't know. I'd like to know. I mean, it on the surface of it, it sounds odd. Maybe there's a reason for it, and if anyone has a credible resource, I'd be interested. Not one that's just bashing Health Canada or what have you.
There wouldn't be a privacy issue or anything that, at least in your estimation, why they would do this?
No, I really don't have my head around it.
Right.
Just give me 1 second here. I just want to see if I can read this. Yeah, no, there are privacy issues. There are issues of redacting personal information and all this sort of thing. So
right.
I haven't seen a good answer on this from anybody, and I certainly would like to know. So
I think many of us would if it's in fact the case, because there could be some legit data in there, right?
Oh, absolutely, and we do need to track this sort of thing, and there's got to be some reason behind this, but I've not seen a credible answer from, I hate to use the word either side. There shouldn't be a side in this, but I'd like more information.
And finally, last email question for the day today. It says, hello, Dr. John. I recently had to take a break from Remicade infusions and then used Stelara instead. My insurance company no longer covers Stelara, so I want to go back to Remicade, but was told I couldn't because your body starts to create antibodies to the Remicade after the break. My question is this true for all biologics? i.e. the production of antibodies after a break from the medication?
I've heard that anecdotally, and often people move on from one to the other and, go through a progression. I'm not sure if you can go back. I've heard of people going back when their insurance didn't cover it, but probably best checked with the specialist who does the prescription, because they'd have a lot more experience with, the effects and lack thereof.
Dr. John, appreciate your time this week. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
That is Dr. John Gillis here every Wednesday to answer your medical-related questions. We're getting ready to take another break here on the program, and on the other side of it's our midweek meltdown, your chance to join the show for an open hour to discuss whatever it is on your mind. We had a rather robust discussion yesterday on the Alberta separation question, the new first-time homeowners program is out, and you've had a chance to go over that. Is this of concern to you, or is this the right direction, lowering the threshold for people to get into the housing market from 5% down payments to 2% on the risk of the government? As I mentioned during our conversation earlier today with Clinton Wilkins, I ran a property. I just grabbed a property randomly. I think it was $449,000 was the listing price, and it goes from about a $22,000 down payment to about $9,000 down payment, and then the government picks up the insurance cost, which on this property I do believe was, and don't quote me, it was either $12,000 or $17,000. So significant saving. Clinton has some concerns about it, worrying that the provincial government could be is backing these loans and could be on the hook for several years, up to 25 years, for any kind of problems with these loans. And he suggests that administering this through the credit unions in Nova Scotia, some people may not get the best rate that's available out there. I'm curious to you what your thoughts are on this. Is this the step in the right direction? We've talked about the dream of home ownership fading in Nova Scotia. Is this a solution, or is this another program that, the devil is kind of in the details? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Midweek Meltdown Open Hour after the news. All right, welcome back. Hour number 3. It is time now for the open hour. Your chance to join the conversation. Regular open hour rules apply. You can talk about whatever it is on your mind. I'm starting to see some flurries out the windows here. So it looks like, I don't know if we're going to get any accumulation out of it, but it's snowing again. I know many of you are getting sick of it as we continue to dig out from that series of 3 storms that we've had in a row. This is the open hour. Everything goes. If you want to continue the conversation on Alberta separation that we had yesterday, by all means do so. If you want to bring something new to the table, this is your opportunity. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. I did come across something that I thought may be of interest to you as I was getting ready for the show today, and it's in today's edition of the Chronicle Herald, Jen Taplin's article. A conversation this week at the Chamber of Commerce, and Public Works Minister Fred Tilley was in the hot seat, so to speak, and was fielding a series of questions from people at that luncheon or that dinner that I think may be something that you will want to comment on. Fred Tilley, the minister responsible, said the province is looking at now installing so-called high occupancy vehicle lanes, HOV lanes, in the existing bus lanes in HRM and in other crucial spots in Halifax. So those of you that are not familiar with what an HOV lane is, it's these so-called carpool lanes. So if you have more than one person in your vehicle, then when these rules come into effect, you'd be able to use these so-called HOV lanes. Now we've chatted about the bus lanes, the existing bus lanes that the province and the city have put in here in Halifax as part of a plan to free up transit a little bit. And many of you are concerned that, and myself included, that they're empty most of the time, right? Unless there's a bus in them. And I think that's by design so that the buses can have free access to busy streets. And I'm just looking around the radio station here at Roby Street and at Bears Road, and you've seen these lanes with the red triangles and the diamonds in them that are designated for bus lanes only during certain parts of the day. And if you use them, if you say, well, I'm just going to sneak through here and get ahead of the traffic, it could result in a $180 fine. Now, if you have a passenger, or I guess the rules will be determined later, then you may be able to use those lanes moving forward with these so-called HOV or carpooling lanes. Is this the right approach, folks? We know traffic is a problem. We know congestion is a problem. Is this the right approach? The minister also saying that they're going to take a look at least the third, if not fourth time in my tenure here in Nova Scotia, at synchronizing traffic lights. You know that frustration, right? Where you drive and you get stopped at a light, and then it turns green, and then you go 2 blocks and there's another light and it's red, and so on and so forth. The minister committing that at this meeting that they would be taking a look at coordinating some traffic signals. And they said they still have plans in place for adaptive technology, like on Barrington Street, around the bridges. So these adaptive signals and HOV lanes are part of the solution, at least from the province, in dealing with traffic congestion. I can tell you, at least anecdotally, on my drive-ins in the morning, and I'm going to pay closer attention to that now as this is a possibility, that most of the traffic that I get enveloped by on my drive-in on Highway 102 are single people in cars anyway. So is this really going to make a difference? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We welcome Brian to the show. Brian, how are you?
Hello, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Just a thought about traffic congestion, whether it would happen or not. It wouldn't cost anything, and it'd be a little bit of effort, maybe. If all 3 levels of government and the forces included, of course, staggered their start and finish times by half an hour. So if you had half your employees getting off at 4:30 and the other half getting off at 5, we kind of cut down on the congestion a bit, I would think.
And the same thing in the morning, I would assume, right?
Yeah. Whoever starts at 8:30 gets off at 4:30, and whoever starts at 9 gets off at 5.
I wonder if that would just lengthen the rush hour.
Well, someone gets a half-hour start.
Right.
They're home, No,
I hear you.
Yeah. And, I mean, they stagger their breaks, so it's not like everything's going to fall apart.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
It's this kind of outside-the-box thinking, Brian. We need to do that.
Yeah, that's all it was. Yes, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for calling.
Oh, okay, bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-825. I think the danger of staggering start times, to Brian's point, is that, when the rush hour begins at what, 7:15 now? 7 o'clock, 7:15, for sure 7:30, that we lengthen that out, and we lengthen the drive home into making the congestion longer if we stagger those times. But if enough people participate in that program, then maybe those congestion times, the length of the rush hour may be longer, but those periods of heavy traffic may be shorter. I think at this point, everything's on the table when it comes to dealing with traffic congestion, right? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
Just we talk about traffic. This is something I've been talking about, and everybody seems to think I'm wrong, but the 102...
Steve, I've lost you.
Oh.
Steve, Steve, I lost you there for a minute. Can you start over?
Sorry. The 102 inbound, like coming into Bears Road.
Yeah.
Where they're, where the 103 meets the 102, and it's always big congestion there.
It's a pinch point.
When you look at the pinch point, now when you look at the lights that are there, when you come down, straight down, when you're going down from your 100 to your 80, 70, and your 50 zone, the first set of lights there, and I can't remember the name of the side street.
Romans Avenue.
Yeah, thank you. Romans there. There, first thing in the morning, there is little to no traffic there, and that light stays red for 2 or 3 minutes.
You're
and
correct.
then the next set of lights you have
At
is
the mall.
at the shopping at the mall.
Yep.
Once again, at 7:30, the mall's not open, and you're sitting at those lights for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep.
And then so if those lights were on sensors, so that people from Romans can still get out, but the light basically stays green for the main traffic coming into Bears Road. So, and the occasional person comes out of the Romans or they're coming in out of the mall. If those lights stay green most of the time, then you have a flow of traffic. Now, I mean, certainly you get onto like Veinotte and stuff like that, but then you can turn left, you can go straight, you can turn right once you get past the mall.
Yes.
If those lights are on sensors, I'm thinking that would. And I did that route for 5 years, and I kept thinking every time, like, if these lights are holding us up for 2 or 3 minutes, and the next light for 2 or 3 minutes,
Which backs
right?
the traffic all the way up onto the bridge on the 102, right?
Exactly, and then people are like, "Geez, I don't know why the traffic's so bad there." Well, the traffic's bad there because you have two sets of lights that are useless almost first thing in the morning. And he said, if you put sensors facing the other way, so if a car does come out of Romans or the mall, they can still get out, but everybody else can just flow. The flow will just keep going.
Good point, Stephen. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for your time.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I take that route every day, every morning, coming in to the radio station here to do the show. And he's right. There's not a lot of vehicle traffic. There is some pedestrian traffic that goes there, but it certainly moves across very quickly. There's a bus stop that is well used on the inbound side there. But I wonder if that's part of the study. And speaking of the 102, very quickly before we take the break, if they manage to find a way, and I don't know what the solution is, but that double merge lane that comes into the 102 off of what used to be the Northwest Arm, which now Dunbrack, right onto the 102 before you start to head down the hill to the off ramp to Joe Howe and then to Romans Avenue, as Steve was telling us about. Boy, that is a pretty massive pinch point there. 2 merge lanes into essentially 2 lanes of traffic. That's a slowdown. And once you get past there, it tends to thin out and then it backs up because of Romans Avenue. Hopefully, this is all things that will be undertaken in this alleged study that the province is getting ready to do with synchronizing and using adaptive technology on these lights. HOV lanes, folks. Is it a good idea to put carpool lanes onto those bus lanes that are on the pavement now? Will this free up traffic? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back after the break. All right, welcome back. Telephone number is 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. This is the open hour, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. I am curious about your thoughts of building carpool lanes, these so-called HOV lanes, into the bus lanes that have sprung up here on the peninsula of Halifax and around HRM. If that's a solution to congestion, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To the phones, we welcome Frankie to the show. Frankie, how are you?
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Okay, one word, nightmare.
Yeah.
You think about the bus lanes right now. First off, HOV lanes like in Ontario and other places, usually they're restricted to or limited to highways or places where there's no lights and people can go.
Right.
If all of a sudden now you're introducing it to bus lanes, by the way, they're usually behind. The city wasn't built for this kind of infrastructure. And people seem to forget, well, wait a minute now, there's bus stops there. There's people where they have to go on the bus and need that little extra care, you see, where they got to deploy the ramps and everything else to have people on the bus. The traffic's already stopping as it is. And the buses are congested, there's accidents, and now they're talking about putting more vehicles in the same lane, regardless of the limitation on the times of it. It's just going to be double the nightmare. So to me, the HOV lanes, carpooling in the bus lanes, is just going to be tragic. It's going to be a nightmare. We're going to have more problems. If they restricted it to highway zones and things like that, where traffic is continually flowing, it would be a lot easier. Back to the light thing you were saying, there's many times I've sat at a light, say around 1 in the morning, and I'm thinking, why do I have to sit here and there's no traffic, and you think it would be quicker. It's too bad they couldn't put a sensor in there that was based on volume of traffic, so the light is quicker, and you don't have to sit there for 2-3 minutes at 1 in the morning when there's no one coming the other way. That's my 2 cents worth.
Thanks, Frankie. Appreciate it.
No problem.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Our bus lanes are not connected. If you follow, and I'll use the Bears Road example, if you follow the bus lane up Bears Road, it goes all the way up the hill to the mall, and there's that new interchange that they built there that is a bit confusing, and then it gets to Veinotte, and then it merges with the regular traffic. And I can tell you from experience that when the bus has its own go-ahead signal there, right? So normally you get the buses through the intersection before the cars even get going. But if you put buses and cars in there, now we're going to merge traffic inside an intersection onto Bears Road. And I'm just looking out the window here. The bus lanes on Roby Street aren't connected all the way through, right? Now, maybe there's a long-term plan with the bus rapid transit program that these things will be connected and then they will have their own flow. But can you imagine moving buses and then cars in and out? I mean, look at the intersection at Almond Street, right? The buses come across and then they go to the two, and now you're going to put cars in there too? I think Frankie's right. I think it's going to create more of a nightmare than anything else if we put HOV lanes onto the bus lanes. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Stan.
How you doing, Todd?
It's Dan, actually, but I'm good.
Oh, Dan. Yeah, sorry, Dan.
It's all good.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Dan.
Sure, appreciate it.
I'd like to weigh in on the recent official announcement by the Halifax Regional Police on their gun confiscation participation.
It's not a confiscation program, is it?
Yes, it is a confiscation program. It is only aimed at legal gun owners, not criminals.
Yeah, but the program's called a buyback, isn't it?
It's not a buyback. It's going to be actually a ripoff. We've already had one person test the waters in Cape Breton. He brought in a rifle worth $1,500, and he probably got about $300 or $400 for it once he actually went through the process.
Okay, I have not gone through it.
So
okay.
they do have a list of what they say they're going to give you,
right.
And I've gone through it extensively, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get that for your firearm.
By calling it a confiscation program, that would mean they would just come and take them, wouldn't it?
That's exactly what's going to happen.
But they're giving you money for them.
After the amnesty ends in October.
But
they're not giving you enough money for them.
I get it, but the police chief said that they're going to take part in the buyback program, not a confiscation program.
It's the whole Liberal program, the federal program.
Fair enough. What's your point on it? You disagree with the chief's decision on that, Stan?
Totally disagree, because he knows deep down in his heart, as a police officer, that criminals will always get their guns no matter what. Anybody could go out and find an illegal gun on the street within 24 hours. It's not hard to do, okay? But this program is aimed at law-abiding, legal, permit-holding gun owners who have done nothing wrong. And their guns are not on the streets as the Liberals say they are. The Liberal federal government likes to lie to Canadians and mislead them about firearms policies. You have a public safety minister who doesn't even know what a possession and acquisition license is, or a restricted possession and acquisition license is.
Nor what weapons are restricted. As I saw the same thing you did, right? You put a picture of an AR that's been restricted in Canada for many, many years.
ARs were only restricted after the mass shooting in Portapique.
Okay.
That's a fact. And an AR-15 is not an assault rifle. Assault rifle, the true definition, I'm a firearms guy.
So am I. I'm a gun owner too, Stan, and that is an assault rifle. By definition or not, it's an assault rifle. It's designed for one purpose.
That's what the mainstream media wants.
That's what I'm saying to you, Stan, as a gun owner.
All right.
Tell me what
I'm a gun owner.
Okay, no, I am Stan. Okay. Tell me what the definition of assault rifle is.
An assault rifle has a selector switch in 3 positions: semi, safe, and
automatic.
Auto.
Yep.
That's right. An AR-15, a civilian-owned AR-15, will only go semi and safe. That's it.
You're correct.
So a lot of us own SKSs, which are even more powerful than an AR-15, and it's a semi-automatic rifle.
Yep.
So why did they ban the AR-15? Simply because of what's going on in the States, and they did it to scare Canadians. Simple. I'm ex-military too, so I know the difference between a military C8, which is the same as, it looks like an AR-15, but it's fully automatic.
Right.
So that's the definition of an assault rifle. That is the true definition.
Right.
And this assault style thing they came up with,
which is in the legislation. It's assault style is the definition, right?
That's right. They made that up. So they've actually banned things like 22 rifles just because they're black, painted black. Something might look like an M16, but it fires 22 rounds in semi-auto. They banned them all.
To go back to your original reason for calling, Stan, and your disappointment with the police chief, can I read his quote to you?
I've already read the quote.
What did he say?
I've read his statement. I don't even want to get into that. What I want to get into...
Because he thinks that this is not going to end gun violence on the streets. It's his quote. It's in quotations. But he wants to give people that want to dispose of their firearms an opportunity to do so. That's what he said.
That's right.
So why is that bad?
Right. Why is that bad? Because it's only aimed at legal gun owners who have done nothing wrong, and these guns we have been locked up for 3 to 5 years. There hasn't been any mass shootings. The mass shooting in Portapique was perpetrated by a guy who smuggled his AR-15 into the country.
All right.
It wasn't legal at all, okay? But 3/4 of police forces and provinces across this country have said they're not going to participate.
Premier of Nova Scotia said that. Premier of Nova Scotia said that Nova Scotia is not taking part, and then HRP said they are, which is certainly confusing to me.
It is very confusing to gun owners, yeah, and Cape Breton is still going ahead with it. But in Cape Breton, it was a dismal failure. 22 people or 16 people brought in 22 or 25 guns.
Right.
The federal government will say 25 because it sounds like a better number, but...
Okay. Out of time, Stan. I appreciate it, sir.
All right.
Have a good one. 902-405. 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. To call it a confiscation program, folks, is inaccurate. It very well may lead to a confiscation program later on, but it is inaccurate. It is a gun buyback program. And the police chief said, and I quote, "I have a duty to victims, survivors, and all citizens of HRM to support any initiative that can reduce the presence of firearms in our communities. I don't believe this program alone will end gun violence, intimate partner violence, or domestic abuse. We will continue to work with all levels of government and community organizations on a multifaceted approach to combat these 3 issues. I respect that people may disagree with our firearms prohibition or compensation program, but now is not the time for Halifax Regional Police to turn away from an opportunity to help reduce the number of firearms in our community." That is the quote from Chief McLean. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back. This is the Open Hour, your chance to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. I may not agree, but that's the beauty of the Open Hour is you can certainly bring the discussion to the table. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. John, are you in an airplane?
I'm not. I'm currently on the highway.
I see, it's awful loud. Anyway, I can hear you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Appreciate it.
Dan, I just wanted to revisit the previous caller. I just kind of caught the tail end, and he was having a discussion with you with regard to the firearms buyback program.
Yep.
Yeah, I just like to say that I do have to agree with this gentleman, in that calling it a confiscation seems more accurate to me than calling it a buyback. And my reasoning for that is that you're not guaranteed to get any money if you turn your firearms in, and this is stated directly on the public safety, the Government of Canada's public safety website, regarding information for this program, and even has been said aloud by the public safety minister himself. So, I'm unfortunately one of the people that will be affected by this, and yeah, I mean, if I have to turn in a firearm and receive no compensation, I can't call that a buyback, and I would have to agree that it's a confiscation program.
John, I haven't turned in any firearms either, and I don't know how the process works. How does it work? Do you go to the police department, turn it in, and they cut you a check, or how does that work?
From what I've been able to gather from it, Dan, is that the site was recently rolled out. So you go on to the public safety website.
Right.
I believe any firearms owner who is in possession of one of these firearms has been notified now by email.
Okay.
And they provide the information. You go to the site, you register or make a declaration that you are in possession of a now prohibited firearm.
Right.
And that's it, kind of, for now. The collection is yet to be determined, and as we've seen now across the country, like it's going to get pretty muddy. I feel there's a lot of places have said that they're having nothing to do with it.
Well, we've seen that right here in this province, right? The Premier said no, but the police chief said yes. So I'm going to ask the Premier tomorrow. He's in here, so I'll ask him where his stance is on it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would certainly appreciate some clarification on the matter. Like I said, as a personal note, I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't think that firearms owners have been the issue.
John, do you have a firearm that's on the list?
Yes, I do.
Is it? And I'm going to put quotes around this because I know it's a contentious issue. But is it an assault style weapon?
Well, I guess. Yeah, by what they're calling assault-style weapons, yes. Is it an assault weapon? No. Those haven't been legal in Canada since...
I get it. I understand the definition, but it looks like one, right? That's what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah, it's based on an AR-15 platform. That's correct.
Do you use it for target shooting? Do you use it for hunting? What do you use it for?
I use it exclusively for target shooting.
Right.
While I am a hunter, I do stick traditionally to... I do kind of larger game hunting, so that's a smaller cartridge than an AR-15.
Yeah, it's like, what, 5.56, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So you use it, it's a target shooting issue for you, right?
Yeah, it's for me, like I said, for me it's a hobby. I mean, if for, I guess, I wouldn't, more anecdotal evidence, but the federal government was in a real big hurry to get rid of these firearms, and, you know, they were so dangerous that all the current owners were allowed to keep them for 6 years. You know what I mean?
I know, I hear you.
We haven't seen any. I don't think there's any empirical data to back that. Like, if they were so dangerous and firearms owners were so dangerous, I feel that we would have seen some crimes committed by them in that time frame.
Well, that's kind of a broad statement because I mean I know mass shootings, I get it, but you know but then again maybe a single shot 12 gauge was used in the crime too, right? It's kind of a broad definition.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I don't feel that legally vetted firearms owners are the big fish in this pond. You know, like it kind of seems like low hanging fruit to me to chase people who already follow the law. Like we already follow the law to the letter, and yeah, I mean. I would imagine the vast majority of firearms owners are going to concede because otherwise it's a federal offense.
Right. Thanks for the call, John. I appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-781-8255. Let's welcome Jim to the show. Jim, how are you?
How you doing, Dan?
Mr. Hoskins, what's on your mind today?
Well, I couldn't help. I just caught the tail end of it, and being an ex-policeman, you know how I feel about firearms.
Right.
At least you should know because I've been at this for since I retired for sure, 20 years. And being an ex-police officer, the less firearms on the street would be to my benefit and my family and everybody else. But I will say that I'm curious as to if Premier Houston or any members of the staff have actually sat down with our local chief of police.
Doesn't feel like they have because one is saying one is saying another, right?
Yeah, maybe somebody could clarify that. Maybe yourself tomorrow if you're talking to them, because that seems a little bit out of place. Not actually meeting together to discuss what firearms that they can describe it. Because a lot of the regular firearm owners, like I have a big problem with handguns. I don't think there should be any handguns in any homes. If you're in a shooting club, fine, and that's all legal, and you leave your gun at the shooting club, okay. And then you have every firearm, Dan, in my opinion, is dangerous in the wrong hands. Correct?
Well,
every
there's no
firearm
doubt.
is dangerous. Yeah,
well, every
dangerous
firearm
in
is
the wrong-
dangerous. Period. Right? It's
it's
that's why we
more
train to use them safely. I mean, you have to assume that
but
firearm's dangerous, right?
Yeah, it is. It's dangerous in, like I expressed, in the wrong hands.
Right.
And I have wonderful neighbors, and they're all happily married, apparently, but some guy could go nuts someday and grab his 16-gauge shotgun and kill his family. We know that, okay? But the list that they have, and some of the stuff I see on there, I can see automatic weapons and all that kind of stuff being banned eventually.
Automatic weapons are banned.
Yeah, and keep it that way. It's a real difficult situation, but we've had, Canada itself, we have rural people that actually need a rifle or something on their farm or a ranch or whatever for various reasons. And but the local issue about the chief himself saying that I'm going to support the buyback, I'm not a big fan of the buyback program the way it is. I just assume the government say, look, on January the 30th, 2000, whatever, we're going to have a voluntary submission of of rifles or whatever they may describe. And never mind the reward. I know the reward is an incentive, but the bigger incentive is to explain to the public why you're doing this and give them some stats as to domestic assaults and what have you, and armed robberies and policemen being killed by rifles and whatever, and do it that way. And a lot of the lawful gun owners have always argued with me that you're picking on the wrong people, pick on the criminals. Well, we're not picking on the wrong people, because a lot of lawful gun owners throughout history and through our history with violence have committed serious crimes. So you don't know what's going on in somebody's head day to day. But the less firearms, Rick Hall used to say, and we used to agree, the less firearms on the street, the better. So it's almost like that argument of abortion. It's a real hot issue. And I know it's going to come down eventually. If the government changes, they may change the whole thing back again anyway. But like I said, it's fine to have a firearm, but in the wrong hands, it's dangerous. So who knows?
Thanks, Jim.
Take care.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I will agree to disagree with Jim on some of his points. I think that the gun buyback program, despite all of its warts, and many of you out there will agree with me, anytime the government tries to do something, they never get it right. But to just say, to Jim's point, to say on January 1st of X that all of these firearms that were purchased legally without any warning, just to say this is what we're doing, that is a significant investment that people have made that no longer they're not allowed to have anymore. I get it. That's kind of why the buyback program, I think, is the way to go about this. And you're right, this is a divisive issue. There are people that no matter what brand of firearm you ban are going to be upset about it and tell everybody else that that they're making a mistake and that it's because it's painted black. One of our callers earlier said that the SKS was in there. Punch, you have been sending me emails saying that's not the truth. The SKS is exempt. I don't know, and to be honest, I haven't dug into the big list. But the buyback program, if we're going to eliminate firearms in Canada, is the way to do it, because there are people out there that have had significant investments put into their collection, I'll call it, of firearms, and to just outright come in and take them out is not the right approach to do that. That's why I think the buyback program is the way to go, albeit we can argue the finer points of the list of firearms that are on this program now until the cows come home. Time to take a break. We're back after these messages.
The Todd Veinotte Show with Dan Ahlstrand returns in a moment on 95.7 News Radio, Halifax.
All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. If you want to join the conversation, by all means do so. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Barry's been on hold for a long time. Hello, Barry.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind today, sir?
The traffic problem on the peninsula of Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a great lot of industry on the peninsula. It's mostly clerical work and that sort of thing. So I don't understand why we can't go back to working from home. There's two main advantages. One is the reduction of traffic, but the other one is the environmental benefits. You don't end up heating an empty office building all night, and in a lot of cases an empty house all day. And I actually think it would even be good for the municipality to actually pay the employer a certain amount of money for every employee they have working from home.
Wow, that's certainly a new one on me. So that you want the city to pay that?
Well, it's the city that's paying for all the traffic. You know, the widening of or bus lanes and all the other things that try to address the traffic problems.
Right. But even if, I understand your point, Barry, I do, but even if we had most of the people that worked from home that can back again, I still think we're going to have a traffic problem, aren't we? I mean, my job, I can't work from home.
No, I understand that, but I would think the majority of companies on the peninsula are in the business of, most of the employees would be on a computer most of the day.
Well, I don't know what the breakdown for that is, but interesting thoughts, Barry. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I don't even know how to respond to that. I mean, that would be extremely expensive, I would think, on HRM's part to pay employers to keep their employees home. Not to mention employers, and I know this is a topic of discussion, but not to mention employers suggest that they want to have their employees back at work because they cite all kinds of concerns with that. So I don't think the city would ever go for that. Maybe a tax break. I don't know how that would all look, and I don't know what the breakdown is. To say that it's mostly clerical, I would suggest that there are a number of you that are listening to me that work downtown that have to be here. So anyway, appreciate the call, Barry. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's say hello to James. James, how are you?
Hi, fine, thanks. Try to be brief as always.
Sure.
You've got the Premier on tomorrow, I believe.
I do. 11 o'clock.
I hope. Yeah, great. I hope to be able to listen. I hope you'll ask him about the infamous firearms buyback.
Yep.
As you just said a few minutes ago, why would he have chosen, among all things, when we've got affordability crises, power rates, we've got all sorts of things that are within provincial jurisdiction, why he chose to go off about something that's in federal jurisdiction and isn't causing any harm. As Jim Hoskins says, it can't do any harm to get guns off the street. Anyway, I hope you'll ask the Premier why he's made this one of his top priorities. Also, maybe ask him what research he based his edict that all provincial government employees have to go back 5 days a week. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, but I know about some people do. And it would be interesting to hear him say, okay, well, this study says this because clearly it increases traffic and therefore is bad environmentally. And, we all complain about traffic. Anyway, there you go. I'll leave it at that, but I'm really looking forward to and I hope you'll, I guess maybe we can call in and ask them ourselves.
For sure.
You might want to kick it off with one or both of those topics.
I appreciate it, James. Have a good one.
Thanks.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Premier Tim Houston will be in studio 11 o'clock tomorrow morning to answer some of my questions and hopefully a lot of your questions. So make sure you're by your phone, by your radio, or by your smart speaker, however you listen to the program, and you join the conversation. Let's say hello now to Steve. Steve, how are you?
How you doing, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind?
The firearms thing. I just got a couple of comments. Like, the first thing is I planned on turning my guns in last October. I had the police come to my driveway, and they told me that it was put off till next October, November, whatever. And they told me to take the firing pins out of the firearms to disable them.
Okay.
And that's just as simple. Like, an AR-15, you can pull the firing pin out of that in about 2 seconds.
I could do it with a blindfold on. I had to.
That's right. And it's disabled.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So it's like this panic on, and anyway, like Jim Hoskins there, I respect him. He's talking about guns like a family can take, the father of the family could take out the family with a steak knife,
right?
Whether it was a 16 gauge or whatever. I just find that foolish, the argument that no gun should be in the house. How were things settled for the last 5,000 years? Violence, right? Anyway, that's my opinion.
All right, Steve, I appreciate it.
Okay.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To Steve's point, yes, there are plenty of different ways if we're going to go down that rabbit hole of violence happening within the household outside of firearms. That is absolutely the truth. But it certainly is a topic that isn't going away anytime soon. And it certainly is. It resonates with Nova Scotians, judging by my telephone lines. Last word today goes to Albert. Albert, how are you?
Yes, I just want to talk about the traffic situation.
Sure.
Now, given that our government's idea of progress in the last few years has been rapid population growth, and the only tangible results we've seen of that is giving us the third worst traffic problem in the country, with no visible benefits to all this growth. It just gobsmacked me to hear that the city is actually coming up with the idea of synchronizing the street lights.
Yeah.
This was decades ago when I was in school. I shared a house with a group of people, including a lady from out west. And the city councilor came to our door during the election, and she presented this to us. She was exasperated. Why don't they synchronize the streetlights in Halifax? And typically, the councilor looked at her like she had two heads. He just responded with a deer in the headlights look.
Right.
Do that? No. Then a couple of years later, I had the occasion to go out west. I went to Calgary. Driving down the main street, Center Street in Calgary. I drove for a couple of blocks, and then I hit a red light. And then I went to the next block, blink, 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 blink. Every light was green right across Calgary. And here, I thought they'd given up on the idea. I thought the only idea they have of improving traffic here is to destroy neighborhoods, cut down our priceless urban forest, our number one carbon sink, like they're doing on the north end of Roby. It just godsmacked me that here in Halifax, finally, decades and decades later, someone came up with the idea. I wonder how many more decades it will be until they implement it, and I wonder how many decades it will be until they come up with the idea of just putting a reversing lane in the North Roby Street from the Commons to Yonge Street. That would temporarily alleviate the problem until they come up with better ideas of moving people than putting expressways in the city.
Thanks, Albert. I'm up against the break, Albert. I appreciate it, sir. Have a great day. Thank you to all the callers and emailers to join the program. We'll do this again tomorrow. Don't forget, Premier Houston here from 11 until 12 to answer your questions. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass. Be well, everyone, and remember, be kind to one another.